Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Wow, 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 wow. The draft is in less than a week. I am so pumped. Feels like we've been waiting for this for forever. We've been doing draft content on the channel for so long. Everyone's been talking about the draft. It's this week. It's coming in less than a week. I am so excited. And so in this video, actually, I'm going to be doing a mock draft, my final mock draft of the entire season. The last draft video you'll see from me before the draft. Doing a mock draft with trades. In this video, we're going to see where all the top 2021 NFL draft prospects end up. We'll be using the PFF mock draft simulator. Before we get into it, though, I was recently on Brandt Parshall's channel for the Big Time Football Talk podcast, a show where we talked about NFL draft prospects. So if you want to see me talk about some more prospects, go check out his channel. He does a lot of great work over there on the Big Time Football Talk podcast. Also, another big thing, we will be live during the entire first round of the NFL draft right here on our YouTube channel. If you want to watch along with us for the entire NFL draft, the first round, make sure you tune into this YouTube channel. We'll be live for the entire first round. We'll give you our analysis on the picks, our predictions for upcoming picks, as well as just hang out with us for a couple of hours. You could be in the chat in the comments. We would love to hang out with you guys. So we'll be live for the first round. Wanted to point that out. Also, go check out Brandt's work. And if you're new to the channel, please like and consider hitting the subscribe button. It only takes a couple seconds of your time, and it really helps us grow. But last video before the draft, a mock draft with trades. I am so pumped. Let's get into it right here. So I pulled up the PFF mock draft simulator. It's free to use. You guys can go use it too. It's where I like to do my mock drafts because it allows you to do trades for free, which is very important, unlike sites like the Draft Network or stuff like that. But at pick 1, we're starting with Jacksonville Jaguars. It's a pretty obvious pick. I'm going to go through the obvious picks, not explain them a ton because everyone knows the Jaguars are going with Trevor Lawrence at pick 1. We'll draft him, and that'll bring my New York Jets onto the clock. It's no secret the entire draft process. I've wanted Zach Wilson at pick 2. I think he's the better option. Also, quick disclaimer that in this video, I'm not going to be doing what I want to do. I'm going to be doing what I think the teams will do. It's kind of my predictions for draft day. And Anish did one where he mixed what he think will happen with what he wants to happen. But in this one, quick disclaimer, I'm just going to be doing exactly what I think will happen on draft day. So throwing my biases out the window or what I want. But I do think Zach Wilson is the obvious pick at pick 2. And I think everyone knows that now. It's becoming more and more obvious to people that Zach Wilson is almost a surefire lock to go pick 2 to the Jets. So the first 2 picks go as expected by a lot of people. But pick 3 is really where the draft starts. The Niners sitting at pick 3. We've dove into this topic a ton on the channel. But pick 3, is it Justin Fields or is it Mac Jones? It's a big debate between a lot of people. And if I were picking what I would do, I would go with Justin Fields. But since I'm not, and I'm picking what I think will happen, might hurt some Niners fans, but I'm taking Mac Jones at pick 14. I really would not condone this pick. I'm gonna, for lack of a better word, crap on this pick if this happens for the San Francisco 49ers. I just don't think it's a good idea to trade up all the way to pick 3 to take Mac Jones when Justin Fields is on the board. I think Justin Fields is a way better player. And Mac Jones, I'm just not a huge fan of as a prospect. He's definitely not a top 3 player in this draft class. So I would really not like the pick. But like I said, I got to pick with what I think is going to happen. And I really do think that the San Francisco 49ers will go with Mac Jones at pick 3, which now brings us to pick 4 in the Atlanta Falcons. And here's where I have my first trade of the day. Pull up the trade meter. I'm going to go down, and I'm going to pick the Denver Broncos, who are going to be trading up to pick 9. It's going to be, they'll trade pick 9, their 3rd rounder this year, and then their 3rd rounder next year for pick 4 and a 6th rounder next year from the Atlanta Falcons. I'm going to force the trade through. I used a draft site that showed exactly what each pick is valued, and this is good value for both teams. But the Broncos trading up to pick 4. Justin Fields got past the 49ers, and the Broncos decided that they were going to trade up. It's what I think would happen in this scenario. The Broncos desperately need that quarterback, and they're going to leap up 5 spots to draft Justin Fields at pick 4. So our first big surprise trade of the day is the Broncos trading up for Justin Fields. So like we've seen, 4 quarterbacks go in the top 4. And there's still one on the board, too. Trey Lance is still on the board. We'll see what happens with him later. But the Bengals are on the clock. Another situation where what I would do is different than what I think will happen. I would take Penei Sewell. Without a doubt, I'd rush the pick in, take Penei Sewell to protect for Joe Burrow. But Joe Burrow has been pleading with the Bengals to take Jamar Chase, his receiver from LSU. And I find it very hard for them to turn him down. I really don't think it would happen. I think it's unlikely. So I think they listen to him, They're going to go Jamar Chase out of LSU. He's not personally my wide receiver one in the draft, but for the Bengals, I would understand why he's wide receiver one with all of the chemistry he has with Joe Burrow. I understand, why Burrow wants to play with him, but I really do think O-line is a better fit. However, in this case, I have to go with what I think will happen. So to look back at our top 5 picks so far, Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Mac Jones, Justin Fields to the Broncos who traded up, and then Jamar Chase. So the Dolphins are on the clock, and the Dolphins have made it obvious. They're telling people that they might want to trade back down in the draft from pick 6, go a little bit further down. So I do have another team trading up here, and this is one that I really haven't seen all that often. This is my big surprise trade of the first round. There's always one of those every year, and it comes right here for me. I'm going to have, let's find them, the Los Angeles Chargers are going to trade up to pick 6. They give up pick 13, their third rounder this year, pick 77, and 22 third round pick for the Dolphins' 6th overall pick. We'll force it through again. Again, use the same trade logic. They trade up to pick 6 to reunite Justin Herbert with his left tackle. It'll be the left tackle of the future for the Los Angeles Chargers, one of the best prospects in this draft. Kind of surprised that he fell to pick 6 after the Bengals didn't take him. So the Chargers trade up to draft Penei Sewell from Oregon to be that left tackle, the protector of Justin Herbert in the future, reuniting the Oregon pair. A great pick and a big trade up, but I really think it's worth it. And I think it's very likely that the Chargers do this on draft night. So I had to do it in this mock draft. The Lions are sitting here at pick 7. They really need a wide receiver after Kenny Golladay left and Marvin Jones left. They don't really have a lot of people in the wide receiver room. I considered Kyle Pitts. I'm thinking Kyle Pitts, but since they already have TJ Hawkinson, I don't think they invest in a player like Kyle Pitts. They need that wide receiver 1. I think they go Devonta Smith out of Alabama. A very versatile wide receiver, can play in the slot, can play outside. I know he's skinny. I know he's small. And a lot of people will point to that, but he's dominated for the last couple of years. Won the Heisman Trophy this year. Great on film, great statistically. Just beat a lot of DBs. And I think you can overlook size a little bit when they have the production. And since his SEC competition, he stood up to that. I really think he can do so again in the NFL. I think he'd be a great NFL wide receiver for years to come. Detroit gets their new number 1 overall wide receiver. And so the Panthers now are sitting there. They're super happy because Kyle Pitts, possibly even the best prospect in this draft, fell to them at pick 8. So they take him right here. Sam Darnold was traded. And so one of the other players that I'm kind of thinking that might happen with the Panthers is Rashawn Slater. But since Pitts is on the board, they jump on that option. Now they have DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, Christian McCaffrey in the backfield. Now they have Kyle Pitts at tight end. So if Sam Darnold can't make it work with those weapons, he's not the guy. Considered also Trey Lance here, but since he's more of a project and so is Sam Darnold, I went with Kyle Pitts here, just an elite prospect at his position and also just elite prospect in general, probably one of the more likely players in this draft to become a Hall of Famer. So Panthers jump on that option at pick 8. And the Atlanta Falcons sitting at pick 9 after their trade back. It's a perfect dream scenario for them because the reason they trade back from 4 is because they need defense. And if they're not going to go quarterback, they need defense. And I think that's where they're looking. But there's no one defensively that's worthy of pick 4. So they trade back, they get multiple third-round picks, and they're able to get the guy that I think they would take at 4 if they went with defense, Patrick Surtain, the second from Alabama, a stud corner, my cornerback 1 in the class, a super scheme versatile player, can play on the outside, can play man, can play zone. He's just a super versatile corner, great technically, and while he lacks in some of the speed department and play speed, he makes up for that in technique, in my opinion. So just a perfect trade back for the Falcons. They grab the player I think they would have taken, and they get multiple picks. And I really think that they will look to trade back because I don't think they're looking quarterback in the first round. So tremendous trade back for them. And for my last trade, it'll actually be here, last trade of the entire first round. Dallas also looking to trade back and maybe grab defense since Patrick Surtain was probably their number 1 player they wanted. He's not available. So I think they will trade back. But really, it's the New England Patriots who are trading up. To grab the quarterback I mentioned, that was sliding. They trade pick 15, pick 96, and their third round next year for Dallas's pick 10. And they're trading up to take Trey Lance, quarterback out of North Dakota State University. PFF has them as their 10th best prospect in the draft. New England gets their quarterback of the future. He'll sit for probably a year or maybe half a year behind Cam Newton. Very similar play styles. Trey Lance will learn a ton working with Cam Newton in New England. Tremendous trade up, tremendous draft pick. And I really do think that with the Patriots going all in free agency, they'll definitely go all in the draft, because with all these weapons, I don't think you'll win a Super Bowl with Cam Newton this year or next year. So they trade up, they get that quarterback of the future that can work with those weapons and has so much potential, probably the most potential of any quarterback in this draft class. The Patriots trade up for Trey Lance, and Dallas trades down to pick 15. We'll see later what have them getting. And because of all these trades up and the quarterbacks going early, the New York Giants are able to take Jalen Waddle at pick 8. Waddle's been a player that's been linked to the Giants almost the entire draft process. So I don't think very many Giants fans will be surprised by this pick. If he's available, very likely pick to pair alongside Kenny Golladay and Darius Slayton. A tremendous pick for the New York Giants, and one I think is one of the more likely picks in the first round. And now the Eagles are on the clock. Couple ways you can go. They can go offensive line to build depth, play Slater at left tackle or play him at guard for now and then left tackle in the future. You can take Micah Parsons, Christian Barmore. There's a couple of guys that you consider, even J.C. Horn a little bit down the board. But I think they go the top player on the board, sliding a little bit because of off the field concerns. But I think the Eagles might overlook that a little bit and realize that there's a good football player underneath that and try and bring that out. Howie Roseman jumping on the chance to draft a stud in Micah Parsons. They need linebacker very badly, and this is a combination of need as well as best player available. Micah Parsons is the pick at linebacker for the Eagles. You could see him drop a little bit farther if the Eagles don't take him, but I think with the players that are on the board, they'll jump on the opportunity to draft their linebacker of the future. Linebacker 1 in Philadelphia, Micah Parsons, a very likely pick as well. Just to catch back up on what's happening. Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Mac Jones. Trade up for Justin Fields for the Broncos, Jamar Chase, Sewell, Smith, Pitts, Surtain, Lance, Waddle, and Parsons, which leaves the Dolphins on the board after they traded down. They traded down for pick 6 with the Chargers, and they're going to get Rashawn Slater, in my opinion. He'll play guard probably. They'll keep Robert Hunt and Austin Jackson at tackle, but even if they want to move Slater out to right tackle or left tackle, they can slide anything around. A very versatile offensive lineman. Could improve a little bit in pass protection, but he shut down Chase Young last year. So he's a very solid, very good offensive lineman, right up there with Sewell in a lot of people's offensive line rankings. Even some people have him as the best offensive lineman in this class. So Sewell to the Miami Dolphins. The Vikings would have loved to grab Sewell to replace Riley Reiff or to play a guard for them, but Christian Darrisaw is a pretty good consolation prize. They'll draft him. He's going to play tackle for them. And so while, they don't get Rashawn Slater, who they thought could fall just one more pick, they get Christian Darrisaw. A lot of people have them taking Elijah Vera Tucker, but since the O-lineman slid a little bit in this mock, they end up with Darrisaw, and Vikings fans will definitely be happy with that pick, which leaves the Dallas Cowboys on the board after they traded back. Since they weren't able to get Patrick Surtain, they trade back 5 spots, and they draft J.C. Horn out of South Carolina, another great cornerback prospect who, if they stayed at 10, they probably would have gone with. So they trade back 5 spots, take the same prospect they would have gone with. You could say they could have taken Slater at pick 10, but I think it's more value to trade back, get more assets in future drafts, and as well as a third rounder this year to take J.C. Horn, who's just right up there with Patrick Surtain and also Caleb Farley for the top cornerback prospect in this draft. But I think the Cowboys, with that trade back and taking Horn, is very good value, and they make off like thieves with Horn at pick 15 and those third-round picks from the Patriots, which leaves the Arizona Cardinals on the clock at pick 16. There's a couple options here. I think they could go Elijah Vera Tucker to play guard or tackle, but I think the main pick is going to be Christian Barmore, who I think will go a little bit higher than people are expecting right now. He's gained a lot of steam recently, shooting up some draft boards. A lot of people are realizing that in a not very deep defensive line class, you go for Barmore, and I think he's going to get drafted a little bit higher than people expected. He'll pair with J.J. Watt, Chandler Jones on that defensive line to wreak havoc on the rest of the NFC West quarterbacks. A lot of high-powered offenses in the NFC West, so they need to shut that down, especially in the middle of the field, middle of the defensive line. Barmore plugs in there right at the starting defensive tackle for the Cardinals. And the Raiders are very happy they didn't go with Elijah Vera Tucker because the Raiders decimated their offensive line this free agency period, this offseason, and they get Elijah Vera Tucker, who will most likely play guard for them, could also slide over to tackle, play tackle with Colton Miller. I think he'll play guard, an elite guard prospect. I watched him a lot at USC. He is a stud pass protector, run blocker, a lot of comparisons to Zach Martin. I'm not sure if he'll end up like that. but a great pick for the Raiders. They fill in the offensive line. If he's on the board, it's an immediate pick, I think, because they need that offensive lineman that they lost in free agency. Take Elijah Vera Tucker, and the Dolphins are on the board with their second pick of the first round. And this is where I think the first edge rusher will come off the board, and it's not Kwity Paye, in my opinion. It's Jalen Phillips from Miami. They keep him in Miami. A tremendous prospect with a lot of potential, as long as he doesn't get injured with the concussions that he's had in the past, as long as those injury issues don't, prove to be a big deal in the NFL. The best edge in this draft class, in my opinion. Very versatile, can rush with power, rush with speed, rush with length. A tremendous pass rusher in this draft class. And the Dolphins, they traded back multiple times and they traded up and all that stuff, but they end up with Rashawn Slater and Jalen Phillips so far in the first round. A pretty good draft for them, in my opinion. And now the Washington football team is on the clock, and they're going to take Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. In my opinion, I really think that that's one of the best fits of this draft. I think Washington is one defensive star away at either safety or corner or linebacker to being maybe even the best defense in the entire NFL. And I've been linking JOK and the football team for a really long time. If he's on the board, I think it's an automatic selection for the football team. And that leaves the Chicago Bears on the clock. And it's an interesting pick. There's a lot of people that I'm considering for the Bears. You can go with Rashad Bateman to replace Allen Robinson if they can't bring him back in free agency, or even to just pair with him and Darnell Mooney to be another great receiver. You could think about Greg Newsome. They need a corner after Kyle Fuller left. You could also look at guys like Caleb Farley. Like I said, they need a corner. They could go with Caleb Farley. They could go with, down the board a little bit, Tevin Jenkins to play offensive tackle. But of those four options, the one I think who's the most likely pick is going to be Caleb Farley. He slid because of medical concerns, but he's an elite prospect. He's a top 10 prospect in this draft, or maybe even top 15 if you want to go there. But because of medical concerns, he's dropped a little bit, had back surgery. So teams are a little bit concerned, but the Bears need a corner, and they need a corner now. And I think Caleb Farley will go in there, and he can be that number one or number two corner along with Jalen Johnson, a great future cornerback duo replacing Kyle Fuller. They look past the medical concerns a little bit and bank on the elite prospect that Farley is. I think it's a good pick, and I think it's most likely what would happen if Farley falls to 20 after the medical concerns. And so one of the players that I thought the Bears might have been targeting, Tevin Jenkins, I think will go to the Colts. They need an Anthony Costanzo replacement at left tackle, or they could even move Braden Smith over left tackle, have Jenkins play right tackle. He's a lot like Mekhi Becton. He's a merciless run blocker, pass blocker, just tremendous. And I think he fits in well with that Colts offense and really rounds out that offensive line unit. They love offensive line. They really like having that foundation in front of Carson Wentz or whoever they have at quarterback. So I think replacing their left tackle is their highest priority. So they take Tevin Jenkins. And at pick 22, the Tennessee Titans replaced Corey Davis by taking Rashad Bateman, a wide receiver out of Minnesota. A good fit, the fourth best receiver in this class, in my opinion. He'll go pair with A.J. Brown to be a good wide receiver tandem for the Tennessee Titans. And unfortunately, as a Jets fan, if I was doing what I wanted to happen, I would have had some more players fall to the Jets. I would have had JOK fall to the Jets, or Jalen Phillips, or Tevin Jenkins, or something like that, or even Caleb Farley. So this is probably the worst possible roll of the dice for the Jets, in my opinion. But I think it's still a pretty good consolation prize to get Greg Newsome out of Northwestern. A good cornerback player. He doesn't have the size or the length that some of the top corners in the NFL have today, but he has those hips. He has his hips, he has his hands, his feet, a great technical corner. The Jets need cornerback a lot. And I think that with the way the board is shaped right now, this is who they would go with at pick 23. Leaves the Steelers on the clock at pick 24. And while it might be an unpopular pick, and while I would hate it, I do think that the Steelers are going to go with Najee Harris in the first round. This pick has been rumored to happen for a long time, and I don't like taking running backs in the first round, but I really do think that's what the Steelers would do. For some reason, they think that they need to get a running back, and a lot of Steelers fans think they need to get a running back. I think offensive line is more important, but what I think will happen is I think they will go Najee Harris. They do that at pick 24, which leaves the Jaguars to pick Trevon Moehrig at pick 25, my top safety in the class. They take him at pick 25. PFF has them as, I think, their 16th ranked prospect in the class. So it's good value, in their opinion, to the Jacksonville Jaguars, who need safety. Their second pick of the draft, they've got Trevor Lawrence and Trevon Moehrig, and they've got pick 33 as well on the draft. So we'll see what they can get with that. The Cleveland Browns need linebacker. JOK and Parsons are gone, so they go with the third best option, in my opinion, Zaven Collins, an athletic freak as well, who a great tackler, a tremendous linebacker prospect. The Browns need linebacker more than anything. They might want to pick an edge to be alongside Myles Garrett, but they got Jadeveon Clowney, so I think that ship has sailed. So in this case, they go to Zaven Collins to be their linebacker one. On their defense, the Ravens, their first of 2 first-round picks now. I think they go with Elijah Moore to get a receiver for Lamar Jackson. He'll play with Hollywood Brown and Willie Snead and Mark Andrews. They're just going to keep throwing darts at wide receivers to see, or keep throwing wide receivers at the wall, basically, to see which one of them stick. So they go with one here as well, Elijah Moore. We'll see what they do with pick 31 later in the draft. And the New Orleans Saints, they replace Trey Hendrickson with Kwity Paye. Cameron Jordan also aging as well, so they go with edge. A lot of people's edge won in the class. I don't think so. I think that because of his lack of production, he will sink down the board a little bit, but the Saints stop that slide and they take him with the 26th overall pick in the first round, or 27th. But the Green Bay Packers on the board now, neglecting taking a wide receiver for a long time, but I think that stops here. And they take Terrace Marshall out of LSU. LSU wide receivers have proved to do well in recent years, so the Packers take another one here. He'll pair with Devontae Adams and Allen Lazard and St. Brown, and I think he can prove to be that number 2 or even number 3 wide receiver for Aaron Rodgers or Jordan Love or whatever the Packers' future plan is, but Terrace Marshall is the pick for the Packers. The Bills are on the clock. I consider them going with an edge, but I think they wait one more year, give A.J. Epinesa a chance. So in the first round, they take Asante Samuel Jr., one of my favorite players in this draft class, a very underrated corner. He'll slot in alongside Tre'Davious White in the first round. 2 more picks. The Baltimore Ravens is their second pick of the first round. And for me, it's between 2 players, between Jason Owe and Azeez Ojulari. And a lot of Ravens fans think that the pick should be Ojulari. And so, I think the Ravens will listen to them there and they'll take Ojulari. I think I would go with Owe in this situation, but what I think will happen is Ojulari goes a good defensive end that will fill that 3-4 end edge scheme for the Baltimore Ravens. And in the final pick of the first round, the reigning Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I think they go down the board, a player that slid a lot since the beginning of the year because he opted out and because people realized he wasn't as technically sound as you might want. I think that Gregory Rousseau is the pick for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He'll fill in for Ndamukong Suh on that defensive line, pairing him with Vita Vea as well as Shaq Barrett and JPP off the edge. He'll get a lot of one-on-ones on the inside, which is where I think he is probably best. I don't think he's really an edge rusher. I think he's, a 3-4 defensive end, and I think that he would absolutely wreak havoc on a lot of teams. And so I really like that pick. And that was the end of the draft. Let's see if I can quit out of it here and see what PFF thinks of the first round. I'll throw it up on the screen as well. This is what PFF thought of our mock draft today. They liked a lot of the picks. The only ones that they, didn't give a great grade on was Patrick Surtain to the Broncos, which I don't personally understand. I think that's a slam dunk pick if you're the Falcons. Also down the board, Najee Harris. I agree, not a great pick. They gave it a B+. But Kwity Paye to the Saints was kind of the worst graded pick, other than Gregory Rousseau to the Buccaneers, which I understand that people probably won't like, but I think it's a tremendous fit for the Buccaneers. I think it's exactly what they need. But PFF liked a lot of the picks here. I'm happy with the way this mock draft turned out. It's really what I think is going to happen in the first round, and I think it's best for a lot of teams. And if this happens, I think a lot of teams should be happy with their first round picks. I think the only team that shouldn't be happy is the Pittsburgh Steelers, but it seems like what a lot of them want. They want Najee Harris. But anyways, that's kind of going to wrap it up today. Like I mentioned before, we're going to be live for the first round of the NFL draft. We're super excited. We've been talking about the draft for what seems like forever. So for it finally to come, we're extremely pumped. Like I mentioned before, if you haven't subscribed already, please consider hitting the subscribe button. We're going to have a lot of analytical stuff after the draft, thinking about some of the best picks, some of the best drafts. We also have our podcast down at the link in our description on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and also episodes here on YouTube for longer form content where we break down more stuff and you get to see all of us together, all the Cold Hard Truth gang. Down in the description, we've got our podcast links as well as our Instagram, our Twitter, our website. Go check out Brandt's show that I mentioned earlier and prepare. Come be live with us during the draft. I hope you guys are excited as we are. Let me know down in the comment section what you thought of my mock draft. Some, if you liked the pick that your team went with, I want to hear it all down in the comment section. I'll respond to every single comment down there. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Jack Smith from the Cold Hard Truth, and we will see you next time for the NFL Draft.